G'day guys and welcome to Caleb's Conversation Podcast, Episode 7. Catastrophe almost struck European football this week, and what a week it's been. On the 18th of April 2021, an official announcement was made that almost all football fans around the world did not want to hear. The announcement of a European Super League, featuring some of the biggest footballing clubs in the world. Now, I'm going to set the foundation for today's conversation with the important information that pertains to this ESL. That way, we're all on the same page and we all have the information for those who may have missed out or on the drama, and also those who may not be fully aware of all the details that this ESL has put out there. So the official press release states that 12 of Europe's leading football clubs have today come together to announce that they have established a midweek competition called the Super League. And the clubs that have come together to found this competition are AC Milan, Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea, FC Barcelona, Inter Milan, Juventus, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Tottenham Hotspur. Now, these clubs have come together as the founding clubs. There are 12 teams there coming from England, Italy, and Spain, and there is hopes that there's going to be more clubs coming on board. But going forward, the founding clubs look to be holding discussions with UEFA and FIFA to work together in partnership to deliver the best outcome for this league and football as a whole. The formation of the Super League comes at a time when the global pandemic has accelerated the instability in the existing European football economic model. Further, for a number of years, the founding clubs have had the objective of improving the quality and intensity of exciting European competitions throughout each season, and of creating a format for top clubs and players to compete on a regular basis. The pandemic has shown that a strategic vision and a sustainable commercial approach are required to enhance value and support for the benefit of the entire European football pyramid. In recent months, extensive dialogue has taken place with football stakeholders regarding the future format of European competitions. The founding clubs believe the solutions proposed following these talks do not solve fundamental issues, including the need to provide higher quality matches and additional financial resources for the overall football pyramid. Now, the basic format of this competition would be that there is 20 participating clubs with 15 founding clubs. So those the 12 clubs that we named earlier from England, Italy, and Spain. And there would be a further clubs to come on board to participate in this midweek competition that they state would also be added on top of the already associated domestic competitions that they have been participating in. Now, that is a lot of information, all of it released by the official European Super League competition. Now, in the span of a couple days, we have gone from the founding clubs ready to mobilize and begin the league as early as August to the competition essentially crumbling. The crumbling was all thanks to the uproar in media, internally at the clubs, including players and coaches, but most importantly, the fans. Football is nothing without its fans, and the sport is only as worth as much as it is with them. So it is obvious that these clubs should be listening to their fans so that they can have a say on what happens in this amazing sport that we all love. To break down the highs and lows of the European Super League drama that has unfolded over the last few days, I have brought on two passionate football fans, Doyson and Shuban. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I know it's a lot of information. I know we have plenty of thoughts. Mate, what a crazy last couple of days it's been. What are you guys' initial thoughts on the competition that was announced just a couple of days ago?
Well, I guess when it first came out, I remember waking up to it, and because it was like 7 o'clock our time when the talks came out.
I remember waking up to the news as well.
And I was like, what is going on? Like, why have Arsenal signed onto this? And I remember thinking, what is happening here? This is like, I was panicking. And then the statement got released that it was official. And I was like, this is a mess. Like, we have to turn this around. Yeah, it was a complete disaster, I remember thinking at the time.
I was actually awake for the Man United match that day. And at the halftime report, they actually said that they were going ahead with the plans.
Really?
So yeah.
Wow.
And that's when I started getting cold. So I'm like, why is this happening? Why would they want to just start their own league? It's like messing up with this. It's like you messing with your fans all over again.
Well, I'll say we should also clearly establish for those at home that don't know, I am obviously a Chelsea fan because I'm representing the Chelsea blue here. Shuban, you're an Arsenal fan, right?
To say the least.
And Manchester United, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So we have that unique perspective of we're all fans of the respective clubs that were associated with this bullshit. And to say bullshit is putting it lightly. I think the fact that this even came into existence to begin with, I think is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I love the way James Corden put it, because I don't know if you saw when he talked about it on his show, he went on like this 7-minute rant about like why it was an issue. And he pretty much said, because like obviously he has a primarily American audience who don't like there's not a lot of football fans over there. The way he put it to them was, what if Viola Davis, Meryl Streep, and like Emma Stone went and made their own Oscars, and they were just like, only we three can win it. The rest of you have like the sub Oscars. I love the way he put that, because it puts things into perspective really well.
Yeah, that's a good film analogy. I like that. Yeah.
There was another interesting news that part of the news that I saw last night at around 1:00. It was that the Man United fans marched. They broke into the training complex, the first team training complex, marched in, spoke to OGS, spoke to Michael Carrick, Darren Fletcher, and a couple of the players, demanding for the Glazers to step down after Ed Woodward's resigning. So.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to see the fan reaction that's been happening over the last couple of days. I know for the Chelsea-Brighton game, there was huge protests outside the stadium. They were basically blocking off the road for the players and coaches to get into the stadium. I saw a video of those Chelsea protests, and you could see Petr Cech actually came out from the management and stuff, and he came and spoke to the fans and kind of pleaded to them, saying, it's not our fault. The players and coaches are not to blame. Make sure that you're doing this safely and responsibly. And you could totally understand the uproar and anger that the fans have been showing, because the honest truth, and there's no other way of looking at it, that these owners of these clubs, and the owners are the ones to blame. It's very obvious, and we need to clearly establish that the clubs themselves, the coaching staff, the players are not to blame. Chelsea, United, Arsenal, Juventus, Inter Milan, they're not the ones to blame, the clubs. It is the owners and the people in positions of power at these clubs, the chairmans, that have made this decision in order to try and create this thing, in order to make more money for their already filthy rich pockets.
That's the only reason it's been done.
That's pretty much why, because competition attracts more players. If there's no competition, you won't get the big names in football coming to your club, and that's the whole point of it.
Exactly. For the football structure in England and in the other leagues, I guess, is a pyramid structure. The money that goes into the very top of the game in each domestic league flows down to grassroots level. If the top 6 teams leave, all the viewership, all the money going into the Premier League at the very top, it doesn't come down anymore. The grassroots level structure breaks, then slowly each league becomes more and more redundant, and then the whole game just becomes, nothing. The
example I heard was, because this would be a midweek competition similar to the already established UEFA Champions League, was that, if based off their proposed, what they proposed was that they could be able to participate in their respective domestic competitions on top of this. And the way that I was hearing it, they would be prioritizing games in the Super League, and the Premier League, for example, would be basically become like that secondary competition. And the Premier League is one of the best competitions and well-run sports in the world, because it has so much competition. There's so much possibilities, and it's so unpredictable. And when you treat the Premier League, which is arguably, I would say, probably the most competitive domestic footballing league in Europe, like when you take that away and almost treat it like, an EFL Cup or one of those like lower league cups that no one really cares about in the grand scheme of things, and you have, your bench and your reserve players playing those games, it almost defeats the whole purpose, because obviously everyone's going to be prioritizing the Super League because that's where the more money and viewership is going to be. And I just think that's a very sad reality that I don't even think these people really considered.
It's shameful, yeah. Like, and also, let's say they did do that. They fielded their second teams and their reserve teams in the Premier League. And then let's say West Ham win the league or something, or Leicester win the league. It means less. Do you know what I mean? It's like the competition's out. What have we achieved? It's not like, maybe in their heads they were like, oh, let's give someone else a chance to win the league. It's not like that. It's like those teams want to overcome the best. Sorry. They want to overcome the best. They don't want the competition to leave the window and then, say, oh, we won the league.
Well, it goes back to when Leicester won the Premier League a couple years ago.
Exactly.
Like that them winning the league a couple years ago really set the foundation that any team can come into the Premier League despite your troubles, despite your history. If you get a good team, you get good management together, and you really work towards that goal of striving to beat the best and actually get some great momentum on your side, you can accomplish something amazing. And Leicester proved that. And since they won the Premier League, they have been a top team in the Premier League. I would say that they're better than some of these other teams that have been considered for the Super League. No offense, but Arsenal have no fucking right to be in a Super League.
I know. Why talk about Arsenal? At least we have history. Tottenham, how have Tottenham gotten their way
It's a fucking
into
joke.
it?
That's what it is.
It is shameful. It's purely because they have viewership rights. It genuinely doesn't make any sense. The current structure of Premier League to Champions League is based completely on merit. The way the Super League was proposed has nothing to do with merit. It has to do with it's a popularity contest.
100%.
It's who gets the most viewership, who's the most popular club. You get to be in this special rich boys league, and you can never leave. In the proposed structure, the founding members could never be relegated. So even if, let's say Arsenal went there, I'm confident we'd get smacked 6-0 every week. Real Madrid, freaking Ronaldo's going to score hat-tricks on us every single week. We'd finish last, and then we can't get relegated. We get another 3.5 billion or whatever it is the next year.
Yeah, it's just a way for them to just make a paycheck.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's absolutely
I think
ridiculous.
it's this principle that the German clubs said no. We don't want to join you guys.
Well, they have a very interesting situation because they have a 51% ownership by the fans.
Yes.
And obviously, if this proposed plan was given to them, I can imagine that the fans would have definitely not agreed with it, as shown by all the teams that were associated with it showed. So it's one of those things, obviously, I think it's admirable that Bayern Munich and PSG definitely said, no, definitely not. Let's, stay out of this one. And it's a shame that especially those 6 Premier League teams were involved. And, one of the news reports that I heard was that Chelsea and Manchester City were the 2 teams that were actually most hesitant about joining the Super League. And as a Chelsea fan myself, that gave me a little bit of okay, well, at least I've got that on my side. However, the bottom line is they still joined. Chelsea and Roman Abramovich still made the decision to join the Super League. So the fact that he made that decision proves that he can't be trusted because he still succumbed to the pressure of wanting to get all these clubs involved in the Super League in order to make that money. And I think it's just, like you said, shameful because it basically means that these owners only were going into it for the search of more money in their pockets and not for the search of fair competition and, like you said, merit. I think sport should be essentially built on a meritocracy where everyone is playing and the best go to the best. And if you're not good, yes, you go down, you get relegated, stuff like that. And to take that whole structure away and have this sort of competition where it's like, these are the teams that are in here, come watch them play, and everyone else can go fight, for scraps. I just think that's incredibly rude and disrespectful to European football as a whole.
Exactly. It completely.
I mean, the whole thing started with Joe Glazer because he was the one with the idea. So basically, he's just thinking about money. He doesn't know sport. Who are we kidding? I mean, recently in the news, I read that Conor McGregor wanted to buy Manchester United.
I saw the headline.
He wanted to buy Manchester United, but
he has no right buying it either.
I mean, he would do some some justice by buying a sports team because being a sportsman himself, he knows how much it means to him.
True.
But see, this is where I find where it's interesting is I think a lot of people in the media and a lot of politicians as well we're calling for reform within the footballing sport structure. And I think the best example to turn to is these German clubs where they have, the majority share owned by the fans. Again, I don't know how you do it because it just sounds like a whole lawyer mess
Yeah.
up, but they need to restructure in a way where fans have a definitive say on the outcomes of their club, because I think it's just unfair that they don't have a say. And what's even more disgusting about this whole process, right, is that the contract for the Super League was 187 pages long. That means this could not have been just drawn up last minute in a month, right?
This was
This has
definitely
been
thought
in
of,
development for a long time. So that means that the owners of these clubs that were in the Super League knew about this for a very long time, kept their mouth shut, didn't say anything. That means they turned up to Premier League and FA and UEFA meetings and said nothing, kept it kept it from everyone else, basically doing shady deals under the table, kept this information from the important people that needed to know about it, and then they revealed it at the very last minute, having told no one. The players and coaching staff didn't even know about it, and they were on the front line receiving all the criticism and questioning, and they didn't even know how to respond.
That's honestly quite cowardly, to be
I
honest.
100% agree. It's totally cowardly. And just the response from them since, I think, has also been very poor. I guess they've come out with a few apologies, but I don't trust you.
I mean, you could see the reaction by James Milner in his interview as well, because he was totally dumbfounded. He was shocked. He didn't know what to say because he was caught offside, like with this ESL. So
Well, even Jurgen Klopp, he
Yeah,
came out in
yeah.
2019 being very outspoken against the proposed, Super League
Yeah.
and the idea that Liverpool and Real Madrid would play each other a couple times. Like, it's just the whole point of the UEFA Champions League is that it brings the best teams in Europe. They come together and they face off in this competition where you don't know how it's going to unfold. You could have teams like Porto or Ajax come through and topple those top dogs, and you never know what's going to happen. And what makes it exciting is that some of these big clubs verse each other very rarely. And that's what makes it exciting.
Exactly.
Chelsea and Real Madrid are
Yeah.
coming up soon to play in a Champions League semi-final.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened in a very long time, those two teams facing off. And that's what makes that fixture so exciting.
I mean, the dream for EPL fans all over the world would be seeing an all-English final, Champions League final.
That would be pretty cool.
It would be, yeah.
Happened 2 years ago, didn't it?
Yeah,
Spurs
yeah,
Liverpool, that's
yeah.
right, yeah.
It did, yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me that these owners and that the people that were founding this competition didn't even consider the repercussions from this. And I've heard from key members within the board that have made these key decisions for the Super League is that their whole idea is that the European UEFA competition structure needs to be changed in order to fix certain key issues that have been residing within these competitions the last couple of years.
Honestly, that the statements released by the Glazers and Perez, the spokespeople for this Super League, all that said to me was they don't understand how the sport works
Yeah.
at all. Because what Perez said after it got cancelled was, people between the age of 18 and 24 don't like the sport anymore. I'm 21. I stay up till 5 a.m. to watch Arsenal lose 3-0 every week. I wouldn't do that if I didn't enjoy the sport. I love the sport. Yes, it does require a bit of changes, in structure to change things once in a while. Nothing that drastic. That's why the Champions League, I think, are going into their new proposal next week or something to change the format of the group stages and stuff, which is fine. If you change a little bit of structure within each competition, I guess it keeps things updated and interesting, but you don't just make a whole new league to solve that.
Well, what's funny about, because you mentioned that they're doing that reform and stuff, everything that they mention in their press release is that there needs to be an economic change to the way these competitions are conceived. And I think it's so obvious, and there's no hiding from it. It's so obvious that these guys are just trying to take advantage of the wealth, power, and fame of these big clubs.
Definitely, yes.
And trying to soak as much money out of people as much as they can, because it doesn't make sense to have these teams verse each other on like a weekly basis. There's nothing to me that stands out as like that's something that needs to happen in football, because the Champions League already gives us that on a semi-regular basis, and it's so much more exciting for it.
Yeah, if you, like you said, Chelsea playing Madrid in a few weeks, right? Hadn't happened in ages. If that was happening twice a year, every year, you'd get so bored of it by like the third season, even like the second season. I'd get
The
bored
players would get bored of it.
The players, exactly.
They would leave, and then where would your viewership go then? They'd go back and join the smaller teams like Leeds United and Sheffield Wednesday. So
it baffles me, because the whole point of these big clubs versing each other, and especially the Champions League, is it has so much prestige around it. You know, the Champions League anthem, when it plays before a game, that is prestige right there. You know, when you hear that anthem, like shit is about to go down and it's going to be epic.
Yeah.
And to take that away from the fans and the players especially, I just think it's just absolutely... I still can't believe that it actually got to the stage that it did, and that we got to a stage where it almost happened. Yeah. I'll say, if it wasn't for the enormous backlash that was received, this could have happened. And the scary thing is, it still could happen, because this thing isn't completely dead. It's crumbling. The foundation has been lost because those Premier League teams dropped out. But this still could be there still could be a resurgence of this in a couple of years' time. And I think it is very important that we have these structure changes within the Premier League, within these other competitions, so that it is a much more fairer competition, so that everyone is on a fair a fair system where it's meritocracy first, and that everyone is in a situation where they can participate in a way that is fair and best for the whole sport as a whole.
Yeah, in regard to what you said about how this could still happen in a couple of years, I think it's great that fans, you know, despite the fact that this is crumbling right now, fans are still saying, no, we are still going to protest. We are still going to get the owners kicked out. Like Arsenal the fans plan to have a protest, well, today, Friday. And then the news came out that the Super League wasn't going to happen. And the fans still said, no, we're still going to go. We're still going to protest Stan Kroenke, get him kicked out, get our voices heard, so that this doesn't happen in the future again, which is what needs to happen, I think.
100%. And it's a tricky situation, because I don't know how that reform will take place. I think it does need some form of government oversight. But it's one of those things, like I think Gary Neville had a wonderful rant on, I think it was Sky, or BT
Sky.
Sport or whatever, yeah. And everything he laid out in that little monologue, I thought was bang on the money. There needs to be some sort of independent regulators that come in and just make sure that everything is in a way that is fair for everyone. There isn't any shady stuff going on behind the scenes, and that the fans have a say. Because this is what's very interesting about since the pandemic started, right? Is that, and I think what gives more evidence to the owners in regards to their inception of this competition, was that because there's been no fans in the stadiums, people have resorted to watching it through the broadcast, right? Which means more money is coming through the broadcast. So from their perspective, they can see, they saw the opportunity for them to be like, all right, we're not getting that match day experience. Let's try and soak up as much of that revenue from the broadcasting packages, because that's where all the money is coming from. And the scary thing about that is they are still making shitloads of money through the broadcast packages, and no one's in the one's in the stadiums at the moment. So for them, they're looking at it in a way where it's like, you know, we don't need fans in order to keep this sport going and keep it profitable.
I think for the next, I think the FA Cup, I think they are giving the fans a couple of tickets, 20,000 tickets.
Oh yeah.
They are giving the fans free tickets just to watch them, just to watch the match.
Okay.
The FA is
Well, see,
them.
it's strange because the COVID situation over in Europe is still pretty, like, you know, they're still on thin ice over there.
Yeah.
Which is such a shame, because, you know, football is nothing without its fans.
Definitely.
And, that sort of, those reactions where you have, when a goal is scored and everyone goes absolutely ballistic, like that's what sport's all about, is that coming together and that rivalry of, us versus them, but in a positive way that is accepted, where there are rules that are established. It's us versus them, and that tribalistic nature. But we know at the end of the day, we're all there to enjoy the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about sport, is that competitive nature where it's like, we can get together and we want to beat you, but, we know it's going to be a tough road there. And that's what's so great about the Premier League, is that you can
It's
have crazy
unpredictable.
results where
Definitely.
Chelsea can go 5-2 down to West Brom. It's
Exactly.
like crazy shit can, like, Arsenal had a draw with Fulham the other day.
Yeah.
Like crazy shit can just happen where, the last place team can sometimes topple the top of the, top of the
Definitely,
peak.
yeah.
So it's just
We have
crazy
a
stuff
team,
like that
we
that
have
makes it
teams like
exciting.
West Ham and Aston Villa beating the top teams. So.
Exactly.
Well, exactly. West Ham have performed very well this season in the Premier League.
They have.
And the fact that they're competing for top 4 is unbelievable.
West Ham in the Champions League. Wow.
Well, it's crazy to think that they could potentially make it. And I found it funny that when Jurgen Klopp said in a post-match interview that, what he loves about the Premier League is that the fact that anyone can make it into those positions, and that he thinks that, West Ham could make it there. And that he obviously hopes that they don't, because obviously Liverpool want to make
Yeah,
top 4,
yeah.
of course. But it was just funny seeing his reaction to this whole Super League drama, as well as seeing all the other coaches' perspectives as well. Pep Guardiola had a pretty good rant as well with regards to competition and that sort of competitive nature that sport provides, especially in the Premier League.
Yeah, what's ironic about the day that the Super League got announced is the 3 games that happened in and around that time was Arsenal drew to Fulham, Chelsea drew to Brighton, and Liverpool drew to Leeds. So all these clubs that said, we're better than you, we're going to leave and go make our own league, they drew to the clubs that they were saying they were better than, which was
I'm pretty sure there
ironic.
was similar. Yeah, exactly. Very ironic. But also, I'm pretty sure there was a similar thing in Spain as well. I think Real Madrid also had a draw. And I think maybe Juventus also had like a draw as well.
Sign from God.
Yeah, it's just funny that, like you said, it's very ironic that these clubs who think that they're top shit and that they're untouchable, and that they have so much, they're basically like just, they're prestige clubs, right? You'll look at these badges and they're so recognizable around the world, right? Not just in Europe, but here in Australia, in the United States. Like you can go to any part of the world and you see the Real Madrid logo and you're like, that's the Madrid.
Yeah.
You look at the Barcelona logo and you're like, I know the history of that club because they've been like at the highest level for a long, long time.
You look at the Arsenal logo, you laugh.
Yes, your words, not mine. But it's funny though, because like I just don't understand the thought process behind the selection process as well, because there was these 12 founding clubs that came together and created this league to begin with. And then their idea was that there was going to be 3 more founding clubs as well. Who the fuck is going to come on board and join? Like, obviously, PSG and Bayern Munich came out and said, no
Dortmund
thanks.
said no.
Dortmund as well. I would assume maybe that was the other 3 clubs that could have potentially taken it. But those 3 clubs said no. So who else? Ajax, maybe? Was Ajax even considered? They're a club that has
great
so
history.
much great history.
They have
similar
and,
to
and
Arsenal.
they have potential. They have like
they're good.
their players are like everywhere.
They have spawned some of the best
They have.
talent in world football the
have.
last couple of years, and they've been very competitive as well.
They were in the Champions League semi-finals 2 years
They
ago,
were.
and then they sold all their players. I
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
they were still up there. And also in regards to PSG, I was just thinking about this yesterday. Obviously, the German clubs declined the offer because they're owned by fans, like we said. But PSG, what was interesting is now FIFA and this ESL, they're like clashing heads, aren't they? FIFA was saying if your players play in the ESL, they can't play in the World Cup. PSG are owned by Qatar. Qatar is hosting the next FIFA World Cup. I'm thinking the owners didn't want to have an issue with that. So if the Super League went ahead, maybe after the World Cup, PSG would have said, okay, can we accept that invite now?
Okay, yeah, that's a sticky situation.
I mean, I think that football clubs all over the world should have that rule where 51% is owned by the fans.
Agreed.
That way, this ESL bullshit wouldn't be up anymore.
Exactly. But you know what's really scary about this whole situation is that, we're in a situation where this competition really sets the foundation where you can really see that these clubs are in such great positions of power where they can really put their foot forward and try and change things in the whole landscape of football in that continent, which is pretty scary, right?
Just to make their wallets fatter.
Yeah, definitely. It's nothing but a business move. Nothing else. It's nothing but a business move. These guys do not know sport, and they don't respect the sport.
Well, it's a bunch of foreign investors that have come
Definitely.
on board who don't understand the culture, don't understand the history, don't understand the importance to the people. Like, I remember I watched a documentary on Netflix called Sunderland Till I Die. And it's a docu-series that follows the Sunderland team. It started a couple years ago when they got relegated from the Premier League and then relegated again. So when they got relegated back-to-back. And just that show was so eye-opening to me because obviously we live in Australia, right? And the sporting culture over here is obviously very unique and very different to what it is in Europe. And this documentary focused on Sunderland, and they're a small town that has a small economy, and they have a very well-knit culture that has great camaraderie with everyone that's involved, and these people go to work 5 days a week. They make their hard-earned money. That isn't a lot. They don't make a lot because it's not a very profitable little town. But they make their money and then they spend that money on the weekends games to go watch their Sunderland team play on the weekends. And it was just so... It took my breath away, the fact that a sporting team can have such an impact on a culture. And what I found fascinating about that was that when the team lost, obviously Sunderland went through a very bad patch of form when they got relegated 2 seasons in a row. And just to see how the team's performance affected the morale of the town and to see how people changed and how they reacted to it it was so amazing to me because it was a great reflection of how important sport is to people and how important these clubs are to people and how important where they live and where they come from is so a part of their social and cultural identity. And when you watch stuff like that, it's just it makes you feel happy and sad at the same time, that because you can see when it's going bad for people that you get that tinge of sadness because it's like, damn, the team's not doing well and it's really affecting everyone. But then the opposite side of that is when your team is doing fantastic and when you're having success and when you're winning trophies. Definitely. Or when you're getting promotion, climbing your way up that football pyramid. That's the shit that everyone loves to see. And when you can get that camaraderie and everyone's, singing songs and having that joy together as a celebration, that's what sport's about. And the fact that these, owners that were spearheading this program were just so oblivious to this whole side of football. And I understand football and sport especially is a business. And these businessmen were looking at it like a business. But they also need to understand that sport is so much more than that, and it means so much more than that.
It's culture. It's downright culture. That's it.
Well, people, they live and breathe this stuff on a daily basis.
Definitely, yes.
And, in the current world that we live in, games are played almost like every 3 or 4 days, right? So it is a part of our lives and our consumption of entertainment.
I mean, this ESL was a bit stressful for the players as well. If you see, they'd be playing midweek, then they'd be playing on the weekends, and then Champions League again. So, I mean, they wouldn't be getting any rest. That means they would be demanding more pay. And if they don't get that pay, they'd leave the clubs.
Well, see,
there goes competition again.
What's fascinating about this, and I'm interested to hear your opinions on this, was that once all this information came out, the UEFA, FIFA, the Premier League, everyone came out and said, we are opposed to this. And if this goes through, there will be some serious consequences. Some of the consequences that were thrown out there by those people, that the people who are in charge of those respective organizations, said that players or the teams obviously wouldn't be able to compete in their respective domestic competition. Yep. So Premier League teams couldn't be a part of the Premier League anymore. They couldn't be a part of the Champions League. And potentially players would not be allowed to represent their country at the national level. Yep. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
I think it was bang on. Like,
yeah,
they did
acceptable.
whatever they could. I mean, going to drastic measures, they did whatever they could to stop the ESL from happening.
I was really disheartened by it, but I would have done the same thing. I would have opposed the same threats. Like, since I was young, my like life dream is watch Arsenal win the Champions League. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if they went ahead and said, your teams can't play in the Champions League, then that dream is completely cut off without the possibility of it ever happening.
That's every football fan's like dream to see their team win the Champions League,
100%.
just to see their team best, be the best in Europe. So yeah,
Must feel nice, eh, guys?
Mate, well, I'll ask me that question in a couple of weeks. We'll see how we go. But no, I'm in the same page as you guys. I think the consequences needed to be harsh. And I'm still of the opinion that there needs to be consequences despite the competition crumbling. And what I find interesting and why I was so intrigued to hear the players' perspectives on all this was that, if this all went ahead and the ability to represent your country at a national level was taken away from you, like, I just couldn't imagine any worse feeling than that. Just like, especially some of these young players, that could represent England, like Mason Mount, Reece James, Alexander Arnold, like Jordan Henderson. Like, obviously he's a bit, older now, but some of these great players that if that was taken away from them, to represent your country and obviously the Euros coming up or the upcoming Qatar World Cup, like and to not have any control over it, because it's not like you as the players are like, yeah, I don't want to play international. Let's go play ESL. That'll be fun. It's like they weren't even told about this until we and everyone else around the world was hearing about it.
Exactly.
Which is just disgusting.
The dream.
I think the next step would be just to get these owners to step down and
100%.
forfeit their share in the team. That's it.
I'll say I agree. I think that definitely needs to be the next step with regards to consequences, is that I think all these respective owners of these clubs 100% need to stand down and remove themselves from the clubs because they cannot be trusted. I saw, the other day that the Liverpool chairman, whose name is escaping me right now, but he released a video, like an apology video, on the Liverpool social media, and he basically came out and said, we made a mistake. I'm sorry that this happened, and we didn't consider all of these factors. And to me, I look at that, it's just all PR trying to spin the story and gain sympathy. And I don't like to do this on social media because social media is a cesspool. But I had a quick flick through the comments and was looking at the reactions to that Liverpool video on their Facebook. And it was a lot of people being like, yep, people make mistakes. We understand. That's okay. And to me, I hold the complete opposite opinion. I think these people cannot be trusted anymore.
Because, if they're still at the respective clubs, they can do it again.
Well, exactly.
They can form a bigger pool that says, yes, they can win over FIFA and maybe UEFA.
Yeah, who's stopping them from trying again in a couple of years?
Yeah.
And to me, it just, like, the fact that this was in development for such a long time and they didn't tell anyone about it, and that means that they were lying each step of the way to people in those important positions of power at UEFA, in the FA.
They were lying to their own clubs,
exactly,
to their own staff, to their own players.
So to me, that's clear and obvious. You can't be trusted. Get out of the club. That's plain and simple, in my opinion.
I think it was the fans that drove Ed Woodward out of the club. It was the fans that made him resign. It's the pressure from them.
These men have tarnished the legacy of these clubs now. And as a fan who had no control over that, I think is just incredibly, unfortunate.
Just curious, what would you guys have done if the Super League went ahead? Because I remember I was saying to my friends, I was like, if this goes ahead and, we stop playing the Premier League, we stop playing Champions League, and, Optus buys the rights to the Super League, I'm cancelling my subscription. I'm not wearing Arsenal jerseys
I'm not going to
anymore.
watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd rather watch the smaller teams in the Prem.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
The smaller teams, like, take it from me, the smaller teams play much better football than the bigger ones because they want to get to the top levels. The top levels are just playing to just stay on there, stay up there. But the smaller ones are fighting harder to make it to the top. So there's more competition there.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely a situation where a lot of people came out and said, this is the type of shit that makes you disown a club.
Yeah.
And it's this type of behavior that really breaks down trust, and it really makes people question their own loyalty as well. And I think it's interesting that you said that you would cancel your subscription and stop supporting your club. I don't think you're alone in that. I think a lot of people would have done that. I don't know what I would have done, honestly, now that I think about it. Because I love watching Chelsea Football Club. I love watching the way we play. We've had a lot of managers over the last couple of years. But for the most part, I've always enjoyed the way we play our football and the style of football we play. Obviously, having Frank Lampard for the last season and a half before he was sacked was something special for us as a football club because club legend,
Best ever player, arguably.
top goal scorer, coming back and really imparting his legacy from a managerial standpoint was really profound. And obviously him leaving was an interesting situation. But in hindsight, Abramovich did make the right decision because obviously Thomas Tuchel came on board and has really demonstrated his proficiency and tactical masterclass because since he has come on board, he has beaten Guardiola, Klopp, Ancelotti, Diego Simeone twice. He's beaten so many of the top managers in the world in like a very short space of time.
Not Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yet, but
You know what I think?
We'll see.
Though? I think you guys might still be in your honeymoon period because it's been, 2 months since Tuchel got appointed?
Since January, so beginning of the year.
Right, so 3 months-ish. That's a very early period. And even if you do win the Champions League this season, I don't know how you're going to go next season. Because, as an Arsenal fan, when Arteta came in, I was like, oh, this is amazing. We're playing phenomenal football. We're 9th right now. It was a big downfall. We won the FA Cup, which obviously isn't the Champions League. But it's interesting to see how new managers go after those initial 5-6 months.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I feel like with regards to Chelsea, they have a very unique situation where Frank Lampard, when he was appointed the job, I feel like he was almost given that role because no one else was like no top managers were in the market and he was the best option. That would be a good morale boost for the club. And that first year he was in charge, he had so many things against him. He had the transfer ban, couldn't spend any of his money. Eden Hazard had just left, and had basically a plethora of young players coming into the squad, and somehow he pulled it all together and was able to get top 4, which was a huge overperformance. No one expected Lampard and Chelsea to make top 4 last year. So him overperforming last year really almost set himself up for failure in a way because it was like now the bar was like set down here. You've way overreached it. So now we're going to move the bar all the way up here. And it's like the bar was already really high. It's like now you want us to go the extra level. And so I think especially when he made all those big signings as well, it really kind of put him in the deep end because it's like you brought in all this great talent that has potential and unfortunately they couldn't get firing. And I don't think that was necessarily Lampard's fault. I think he definitely played a huge role in that. And I definitely have criticisms of Lampard's style, but I think it's very clear that Chelsea is in an interesting transition phase. And I think the way you put it, the honeymoon phase, I think that's accurate.
Yeah. Do you think you'll win the Champions League this season?
I fucking hope so. It's so funny because the way everything is transpiring, it seems possible. And we've got a great team. We've got the players that we can do it. We 100% can do it. It's just if we can beat Real Madrid, I think that'll put us into a position where it'll give us the confidence and the belief to actually win it. Because Manchester City, we just beat them a couple days ago in the FA Cup. So they're fucking easy. We can deal with Manchester City. PSG, that's a whole entire beast because they've got some great quality. They've got obviously Mbappe, Neymar. So they'll definitely be a tough team. They made it to the final last year under Tuchel. So I am cautiously optimistic. I believe we can. And if we do, I'll be so fucking happy. But we'll see how we go.
Yeah, honestly, when I saw the draw come out that you were facing Atletico, I was like, they're out. Simeone is too defensive for Chelsea. They are crashing out. And then Giroud scores a bicycle kick. I'm like, what's going on
Such
here?
a great goal. So good.
Honestly, his compilation of best goals, if you show
Yeah.
that to your kids,
Yep.
they think that he's the best player of all time.
He's so underrated as a striker. It's a shame he doesn't get to more first team football.
Yeah, as an Arsenal fan, I can speak on this because he's so irritatingly inconsistent. Or like he was at least in his prime. He's a bit more of a... Does he start every game for you now?
No.
No, he's a bit more of a bench player,
Yeah.
hey? Yeah, when he was... I still say to this day, he cost us our best years. Because, oh my God, when we should have won the league in 2016, he went on like a 20-game scoring drought. So upsetting.
Well, it's so funny about the Premier League especially is that because it is such a competitive competition, some of the best players in the world still struggle. And I always found that conversation interesting, especially around Timo Werner,
Yeah,
who has
I was coming to that.
Yeah, who has come into the Premier League and has severely struggled in goal scoring wise. He's actually performed quite well for the team. When you actually look at his stats and break him down, he's doing a lot of stuff that's actually really positive for the team. But so many people judge players like that, especially strikers, based off your output and your goals that you score. And he has struggled in that department. So as a result, people think that he's been a failure. But he has been doing a lot of good stuff. And I think that conversation is interesting because Timo Werner is an example of a great player with so much great talent coming to the Premier League and struggling. Whereas you look at Bruno Fernandes of Manchester United, he came into the Premier League and he just slotted straight in and he has been top class for United since he came. Thoughts on Bruno Fernandes?
Oh, he's been phenomenal. Like from the moment he stepped in, assisting, scoring, he's been he's absolute masterclass.
Well, and that's the funny thing is that I feel like some players just have it. I remember those conversations when, I guess maybe it was even late last year as well, when Lionel Messi was going through all those all the contract drama. It'd be funny to see if Lionel Messi did ever leave Barcelona and he did come to a Premier League team, most likely City, because they're probably
Because
got the money.
they've got
Yeah.
the money.
And
Yeah.
Pep, yeah.
Yeah, but if he did come to the Premier League, obviously he's nowhere near his prime now, but would he still perform to his same ability in the Premier League, which is a very physical league?
That's the argument that's been there over the years, hasn't it? But then the counter argument is every time Messi's faced Premier League teams in the Champions League, he ruins them. He's got like 10 goals against Arsenal in 3 games or something like that. He's got like 5 goals against City in 2 games or something like that. His scoring record's phenomenal. And if he's doing that against the top teams, I don't see why he's not scoring, double hat tricks against Aston Villa, on a Tuesday night or something like that.
100%, yeah. I'll say, yeah, it is funny to see those sort of cultural differences between the different countries and the different levels in their competition. So, because obviously the Premier League is a very defensive, physical league. Whereas like the La Liga is a very counter-attacking, fast-paced league. Yeah. So, to bring us back to the ESL, I think we touched on it earlier. But when you guys found out about it, like, what were your initial reactions? Like, did you immediately think this is going to go down, like this is going to happen, or were you hopeful that was going to crumble?
I was hopeful that it should crumble because it's a kick on every sports fan's back. Like it's a kick in the ass. That's it.
When they released the statements, I thought this will go through because despite the fan uproar, despite what myself and millions of others were posting on social media against the ESL, I just figured the clubs and the owners were just going to disregard that because that's what they had done to form the Super League anyway. So I just thought our opinions wouldn't have been validated at all, and the Super League would have been formed.
Yeah, I was very cautious with this whole situation because I remember when the news first came out, I was like, wait, what? This is a thing? This is happening? I was just so shocked. I remember going onto my phone and checking the news and and just seeing all these articles and being like, what the hell is happening? And then you start seeing some of the coverage and hearing some of the pundits from the UK talk about it, and just seeing the potential knock-on effects that it would cause. It was almost like doomsday for football. Like Rio Ferdinand put it very well. This is a war on football, and like we mentioned earlier, Gary Neville had a very good outlook on it as well. And I thought even his conversation with Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football was also very good. And it's fascinating to see how everyone reacted. And it was great to see because it was almost a unifying of everyone, despite our rivalries and our teams.
Yeah.
You know, like Tottenham and Arsenal, bitter rivals, right? And yet those fans still came together on this issue and were like, something needs to change and we need to stop this in its tracks.
Because
and that was beautiful to see.
If we didn't stop it, there would be no rivalry to enjoy.
Yeah, true. I agree.
Well, exactly. Like I remember when during the Chelsea protest before the game, I remember seeing one of those protest signs was we want our cold night in Stoke.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just stuff like that you would miss as part of that English football experience. And so my question to you guys now is, now that everything is kind of crumbling, what do you think the next phase will be with regards to potential consequences or with regards to reactions and how these teams are interpreted moving forward? What do you think is going to happen in the foreseeable future?
It's really hard to tell. Because it's crumbling, I don't think any clubs will be sanctioned. I don't think there's going to be any bans for any players in any competitions.
So you don't think UEFA and FIFA are still going to step up and do something about it?
I don't think so, because the clubs pulled out. I think now I'd still get it if the consequences were there, but I do think it might be a bit harsh because the plans were there for 2 days and then they were out.
Well, I feel the consequences should be there for the owners to step down from the UEFA meetings and the FIFA meetings. I think they should be banned from the meetings, because if they can conspire once, what's stopping them from doing it again? So I think there should be consequences for those guys. Maybe get them to step down and get the fans to own like a 51% of the club. That's it.
I'm on the exact same page as we do.
Yeah.
I think the owners definitely need to be removed from these clubs because they are a parasite that is leeching off the system that has proved to be very profitable for them. They need to be removed from the footballing program. And I think, I still will be interested to see how the consequences are interpreted moving forward, because like I said, I think there needs to be some. How harsh or lenient they will be, I don't know. But it's funny to see how quickly this whole situation has developed over the last couple of days. Like when the news dropped a couple of days ago, when it all kicked off, I was so angry and furious. I needed to voice my opinion in some way. But I'm glad that we took a couple of days to let the situation settle. And now we've got a full, well-rounded story of the beginning and ending of the Super League, which I think is funny. You know that GIF of from The Simpsons of Grandpa Simpson walking into the bar,
And then leaving,
puts the hat on, and then goes in, and then walks straight back out. That is the Super League in a nutshell, right there. And I thought that was quite funny. So, do you guys have any final thoughts on regards to the ESL and these teams that have been associated with it?
No, we covered a lot actually, and you made a good point there, because this podcast would have taken such a different tone if we did this 3 days earlier.
Yeah,
it would have been such a mess. I would have been like, no, why are Arsenal joining? But yeah, I think I'm so happy that everything's calmed down, and all the English clubs have pulled out, and every team's pulling out now. But yeah,
this would have been a different conversation if it all had to go down. Definitely. I mean, we would have been a bit less calmer. Would have been more angrier than usual. But yeah, we are really happy that it all crumbled. I'll probably be more happier once the owner step down, and hand over the clubs, back to the fans, because football is nothing without its fans.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion where I think this has been a roller coaster of emotions these last couple of days. I remember, waking up, when all this news dropped and being like, what the hell's going on? And then just every, hour for the next couple of days, I was just constantly refreshing, trying to find out what's happening next. What's the latest update? What's going to happen to not only Chelsea, but all these great clubs, because they have such a great reputation. And I feel like the actions of a few have really tarnished that. And it's such a shame because, these clubs represent so much to people and so much to, the competitiveness of sport. And it'll be interesting to see, the aftermath of it all. And for the rest of this foreseeable season, the Premier League is obviously coming to an end. The Champions League is coming to a close. It'll be interesting to see what the reception is if the teams that were associated with the Super League, such as Real Madrid, Chelsea, or Manchester City, whether those three teams were still associated in the Champions League, if they do end up winning it, what the opinions will be on that, because obviously a lot of people still think that they should be kicked out or removed or points deducted in the Premier League, all that type of stuff. So I'll say
I'd be happy if City got some points deducted.
yeah, well, I think we all would, right?
Definitely.
I think it's more than clear that they're going to win the Premier League this year.
Yeah.
I say they deserve it. Similar to Liverpool last year, where they kind of just ran away with it.
Yeah.
So, but I think Manchester City. It's funny though. They had before they got knocked out by Chelsea the other day. I looked at their team, their roster, and Pep Guardiola, and I was like, the quadruple's on for them. If they are going to win anything this year, it would be a great fairy tale if they did win all four. And I was nervous about that because I knew if they were going to do that, they had to bypass Chelsea at some stage.
Yeah.
And the fact that Chelsea have now beaten them has now taken away their quadruple dreams. So now I'm like, fuck it, they can get fucked.
Yeah.
They can. Hopefully they don't make it to the final, because then there'll be that small part of me that's like, I think Manchester City probably up there with Bayern Munich is probably the best team in Europe. So they probably deserve to win the Champions League for the first time in their history. But as a proud Chelsea supporter, I'll be living and breathing that if they do make it.
City have got their cup final in this weekend, haven't they, against Spurs?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what's funny about that is we won't really dive into this now, but Jose Mourinho obviously was sacked during this whole process, and the Super League news was so monumental that Jose Mourinho, one of the top managers in the world, got sacked, and that was like a B story to everything, which I think is a great reflection of the stakes of all of this.
And it was sort of covered up as the club released a statement saying it's purely results related, but no one sacks a manager 4 days before a cup final.
Well, I think it's incredibly disrespectful to sack a manager a couple of days before a cup final, because he has done all the work to get them to that stage.
Definitely.
And then you're going to take that away from them or from him.
Yeah.
I think that is incredibly rude.
And probably because he spoke up against the ESL. That's why I think.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'll say I'm sure there's more to that narrative, but Jose Mourinho is a very diplomatic person, and he's not going to speak out of turn. But I think I feel sorry for Jose, because he's had a lot of tough decisions given against him the last couple seasons with his respective teams, and he's definitely still a top manager, but he's definitely lost his edge, I would say. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. It'll be interesting to see where all these top clubs, I say top clubs, these owners have just distinguished that, but I think that's definitely a debatable argument. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds over the coming days, and I'm glad that we've had a beginning, middle, and we're coming to an end with the ESL. Hopefully, this is the last time we ever really have to talk about it in depth, and that the ESL never makes a resurgence, because the consequences it could have not only on European football but world football and the culture of world football, I think is profound, and like I said, there needs to be some sort of consequences. What they will be, I'm not too sure, but again, I'm excited to see the end of the season conclude with my team Chelsea. So hopefully it's a great end to the season with some good trophies. So
yeah, you could get a double.
We could. That would be something special, but we'll see how we go. The legacy of Frank Lampard and the carrying of the torch by Thomas Tuchel would be very cool. So we'll see how we go.
Yep.
Doyson, Shuban, thank you very much for coming on the podcast and discussing this ESL drama with me. Hashtag no to the Super League.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Definitely.
So it is crazy how much impact fans can have on social media and through all these hashtag campaigns. We've seen so much evidence of that recently in so many different industries. But I'm glad in this situation it's worked for the positive. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
That is the end of this conversation. Thank you very much for watching or listening, or wherever you are wherever you are around the world, if I can get my words out. Make sure you are subscribed and following the podcast links, and I will catch you in another video sometime in the future. So catch you later.